This Future Construct podcast episode is supported by Applied Software. Applied Software is on a mission to transform industry by empowering their clients and championing innovation with real-world expert consultants. So visit asti.com, it's ASTI.com, and please let them know that we here at Future Construct and BIM Designs sent you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Future Construct podcast. I am your host, Amy Peck. And today we have with us one of my friends, I can call a friend, Howard Berger, who is the managing partner at RealComm. Welcome.
Thanks, Amy. And I'm honored to be a friend. We in our relatively short period, we've already, I think, done some pretty incredible things. And thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. And you know, this was prompted because, you know, I've been a part of RealComm now for a couple of years, and, you know, you were one of the first to do a hybrid conference in the, you know, thick of the recent kerfuffle. And it really was amazing. And so I definitely want to talk about that, and we'll come back to that. Mm-hmm. But I'd love to just, you know, tell us a little bit about your journey to this industry and how you became involved with RealComm.
Well, it's not a short journey, so I'm going to go back over 30 years. So got out of college, went immediately into information technology, kind of doing big mainframe stuff. From there, my dad, who was a chemical engineer living in Chicago at the time, said, you know, I really want to get back to Southern California. How'd you like to start a real estate company? And so we started an investment commercial real estate firm down in Long Beach. And I soon discovered how analog and how far behind the commercial and investment real estate industry was in terms of adopting technology. So I saw a lot of opportunity given my IT background at the time, and I got I tied in with a startup up in LA that was producing digital data sets on large mainframes that mortgage companies and bankers and appraisal firms could use to better understand the industry. Really very, very deep data on properties, transactions, and whatnot. That spanned the entire US. And they were updating this information every day. Now, this is, mind you, this is 1987. This is like seven years into my real estate career. And I said, this is what we need. And so I started producing data sets. We were later acquired by a series of companies. DataQuick, Experian, then TRW, the aerospace firm, and then later First American Title, and now that data set is called CoreLogic, which you may have heard about. Right now, it's still in existence. Yeah. So we were kind of the beginning stages of that, and during that journey, and I'd say this is the early 90s, I started producing some data for a gentleman named Jim Young, who's currently our RealComm CEO. He was at that point Chief Information Officer for Sperry Van Ness, a commercial services firm in Southern California. So we got to know each other. And he said, you know, I have this idea. We're both kind of on the same path. He said, I want to start a consulting firm and I want to automate the commercial real estate industry. So I want to go into big companies. I want to teach them how they can apply, how they can digitally transform everything about their operations, because it's coming. Someone's got to do it. We've lived it. We can articulate. And I said, okay, that sounds like a great idea. So over on the side, I started consulting with Jim and did that for a few years and had some large international clients. Really, I think started just that process of the industry understanding what prop tech is. Now, mind you, this is 1993, 94. And so we did that for about 7 years. And then in 99, we said, listen, you know, we're going into all of these companies. We're writing these huge project, project scopes of work. half of the companies really aren't doing all of the things that we want them to do. Let's find the folks who really get what we're talking about. So what we decided to do is we launched a conference, RealComm, in 1999. And tagline was at the intersection of technology, automation, and innovations, the commercial and corporate real estate industries. And the idea was we're going to find the top 3% of those companies. We focused on the big REITs, owner developers, those folks that had an IT staff and somebody that was in charge of, and at a very early stage, we said, you know, these companies are tremendously analog. I mean, they're doing million dollar deals on the backs of napkins. They have no data. They're totally disorganized. They're siloed. They may understand, they may have a concept of what IT is, but no concept of how to apply it to their organizations. So we thought, geez, if we can get them together and start creating an educational program, plus get them talking to each other. Now, at that point, back, we're talking early 2000s, if you were a large real estate organization and you wanted to start playing with technology, you said, okay, we need a new financial system, or we want to manage our leases. There was really no place to go to get information. I mean, the internet was, I mean, you didn't have a Yelp where people could send in their reviews on a Yardi or an MRI or some kind of a BIM program. And folks typically weren't talking to each other because they all thought that technology was a competitive advantage. So we said, okay, we're going to go after the folks that are in charge of technology. They're going to be the agents of change for their organizations. And so we created a group, a community, so to speak, of industry leaders in that. And then, so that kind of started us off, and we kind of grew. We started with back office technologies, and then we just started going horizontally throughout the organization. Anything that touched technology was pretty much fair game. Then the thing that opened our eyes is we started traveling around the world. We started hearing what's going on in Asia. And we started organizing trips to Asian companies. We did one trip. We did a few of these. And we bring folks from the industry, senior industry leaders. We bring developers. We bring some politicians sometimes to come see what's going on in the rest of the world, so they could get an idea of what we weren't doing here, where we stood in, kind of that continuum of adoption of technology. And it was really an eye opener. We did, the last one we did in Asia, this is probably the 2007 timeframe. We visited 8 countries, 32 projects. It was bang, bang, bang. Everyone was exhausted, but everyone said they'd never seen anything like it. And the executives from Cisco came back and started their smart connected building program. And that kind of spread through, it really catalyzed the industry. We did the same thing in the Middle East, did the same thing in Europe. And that kind of level set us as to, where the industry is going. We learned about things like all processes in a building being IP enabled and then being able to be connected to the internet. So that was really the first inspiration for what we would call the Internet of Things for buildings. We used to call it BIoT, the Building Internet of Things. So stop me if I'm going too crazy.
No. This is great because I think it really is a great history lesson on kind of where the industry has been.
So from there, we started building some momentum, and we of course we were running the RealComm conference. That that inspiration that not only will real estate companies need to have accounting systems and leasing processes tightened up and their accounts payable, but they're going to, at some point, they're going to need to start reckoning with the fact that all of their systems in their buildings, their lighting, their HVAC, their security, their video cameras, they're all going to be IP enabled. If back in those days they weren't, they were just plugged in and they had an on-off switch. Maybe they had a dial to dial them up or dial them down, but they weren't computer controlled. And we knew that all of that data was going to be running over a network, so it was going to be important for everyone, from the manufacturers like Johnson Controls and Honeywells and Siemens to the large REITs, Boston Properties, the Tishmans and the the lend leases and and all the folks that own and operate and develop real estate, to understand that they are going to have to know, they're going to have to start intersecting with that world, and that the world of IT was going to intersect or collide with the world of operational technologies. That both are actually, they are in different worlds, they speak different languages. They were going to have to start becoming brothers, and so we started, and I think we catalyzed a lot of those conversations simply by finding the folks in the industry that were really at the leading edge of the spear. They were really at the cutting edge. They understood this, and they were taking risks to do this stuff and bring this stuff together and understand it and start actualizing it in their own companies. So that became our core community. It evolved into us launching the IBcon conference, which now sits with RealComm. They're kind of twins that we host typically in June. Of course, last year kind of pushed us off our schedule a little bit, and we're in November this year, but we're going to get back to our regular June schedule. And then in addition to that, I've been doing these small regional events with CIOs and CTOs and COOs and CEOs pretty much all over the world. I do them in the US, in Asia, and in Europe, so that regional groups can kind of understand what's going on around the world, and we can help focus them on kind of the issues that challenge with regionally. We do a bunch of webinars, about one a week, and then we launched in 2010 a conference specifically for corporate real estate occupiers. This is the Googles, the Intels, the Microsoft, the Bank of Americas, and American Express. It's a big corporate occupier. They're not the landlords, but the tenants that occupy to do their businesses, and they usually have huge portfolios, sometimes some of the largest in the world. So they needed their own conference. We run CoreTech usually in the fall, and that's kind of kept us pretty busy, and kept us at the edge, kept us connected with a community of who I would call doers. They're the 3%ers, the 2%ers that are really out there making a difference and trying things. So, I've been very fortunate to be able to be a managing partner. I focus on the educational programs. So I kind of figure out what we're going to talk about. We're going to bring in speakers, and I'm usually blessed with being able to find some of the best speakers in the world, like yourself, Amy, to help us develop our programs. And you had mentioned Denver, our hybrid conference. Last year, as a result of just a necessity to be able to do things differently, we decided to put a stake in the sand. All the other industry association conferences were canceling for 2020. We said, listen, we have to set an example for the industry. The folks that come to our conferences, they run buildings. People have to get back into buildings. We need to figure out a way to show them how. So we decided, listen, we're going to do a hybrid conference. We're going to have, it's going to be a combination, hybrid being, we're going to have a live component. People will actually be there participating, but we're also going to open it up virtually. And what we did is we had 2.5 days of a virtual event, all virtual, 250 speakers, about 170 individual sessions, done in a very engaging way. We literally scoured the world for a platform that we could do this on, and then we tore it apart and customized it so that we could create something that folks would be comfortable dealing with, and not just another, virtual, just another crazy virtual platform. So we had 2.5 days of virtual, and then we had our hybrid event in Denver. We took a ballroom at the Gaylord Rockies, and we outfitted it like a production studio, had an LED wall, and we streamed, we broadcast, we hosted our live sessions there, and we had a good mix of live versus remote. And I think we did a good job of being able to make that hybrid feel engaging. So that was our first attempt. It was harder than I ever expected. took us, it burned more brain cells than I normally would at a conference, but I think it was worth it, and we learned a lot doing it. And one of our missions has been to share that knowledge with the industry, because we think that building owners need to know this stuff. Because building owners and occupiers are going to need to be able to incorporate these types of technologies and strategies into their businesses and into their events and into their buildings.
Yeah.
So just kind of leading by example.
This episode of the Future Construct podcast is supported by the amazing team at Applied Software. They have solutions for any modern project. Applied Software is on a mission to transform industry by empowering their clients and being the champions of innovation with their real-world expert consultants. They have a comprehensive suite of solutions for AEC, MEP, and manufacturing, and they have a singular focus to help you achieve higher performance. They have software, training, support, consulting, and custom development. Applied Software has you absolutely covered for all of your workflow needs. And BIM Designs is proud to be a client and partner of Applied Software. So visit ASTI.com, that is ASTI.com, and please let them know that Future Construct and BIM Designs sent you. No, and it was so refreshing. And I think I was actually at the airport for one of the digital panels, and then got on a plane and came to Denver, and then was there for the next day. And I think it was really inspirational on a number of levels. I mean, content is always great, but to show like, look, we can actually do this, and it can be successful, and you can have meetings, and you can be safe. And it was really, really well done. And I remember, all of the tables were sort of 6 feet diameter, and so you could have 4 people that were kind of safely apart, and you had some great technology there that was sort of brand new cutting edge safety technology, and then great sessions. So it was hats off.
Thanks.
I mean, it was, I know I can imagine how hard it was, and now you certainly verified that.
The thing, and I can't impress it strongly enough, the thing that we didn't, up until the minute we pushed the start button before the conference, we did not know if it was going to work or break. There were so many small technical issues we'd never dealt with that we had to deal with on the fly that could have taken us down dramatically. It just never ceases to amaze me that we got through it without a massive blow up. But it worked. Yeah.
It was great. It was fun. It was really good, and it was really refreshing to kind of be out and about. So you're in a really interesting position, and I think the first RealComm I went to was actually in Vegas, and I was moderating one of the panels, and I was very impressed with. I think we had somebody from Irvine Group, and we had then a couple of solution providers, and I was really impressed with some of the companies that were there that were who were really leveraging the technology. But one of the things that I think that's remarkable in this industry, and I'd love to get your take on it, is that you do have those who are out there kind of forging a path, but then you have others that are just kind of clinging to these arcane systems because it's just what they know, and it's kind of battling inertia, right? And it's going to be very difficult for them to compel their workforce to embrace the new technology, but also just really kind of create this this change that needs to occur. And to your point, across every business unit within their companies. And so, what are the companies that are getting it right? We don't have to name names. But the companies who are getting it right, what is the secret? I mean, is it really just start somewhere?
I mean, I think you highlighted it. One of the drawbacks of our industry is it is very slow to adoption. A lot of the technologies that we're starting, that this new prop tech movement is highlighting, have been around for over 20 years. We were doing holographic teleportation of speakers on our main stage in 2001. We were talking about, I mean, there are still companies that only take rent via a check. They have not automated payments there. So it's, just a couple of examples that what I think what it takes is there has to be someone in the organization with a vision. And I think that vision has to, at some level, the executive leadership, has to buy into it. Organizations are just really resistant to change. But if, I think in most of the examples that we've seen of companies being successful, there was a driver, there was a leader, there was an advocate who could articulate a business case, had the sense to be able to organize projects in a way that they got small successes, they built up. There was a science to change and transformation. There'll be some organizations that they'll never change until they have to,
right?
Until they start losing business, until their tenants stop, renewing their leases, until they start getting tons of complaints from their tenants and from their visitors. And then there are other organizations that see the writing on the wall. So I think it starts with with an advocate, with somebody who's really understands and can articulate a good business case in the organization. I hate to say it. A good portion of our organization for the past 25 years has been older white guys in their 50s and 60s and 70s that don't necessarily understand the trajectory of technology and what it can
well, and the workforce, clearly where where the workforce is going.
Yeah, so that is changing. I'm happy to see it, but is it changing fast enough? Not fast enough for me.
Yeah. And so we're also seeing just the way space is going to be utilized, it is changing. People are home, people are not necessarily going back to work. I don't know that we've landed in a new normal, or even if that term's even relevant now. I think it's the sands of change now, I think, are going to continue in different ways. But how do you think that this, will impact just the use of space, and how will technology, kind of help us define? Again, you did a hybrid event, but really, when you think about hybrid workforces, construction requires people to be on site, of course. But for those who don't, what do you see as some of the technologies that are emerging to support this kind of fractious workforce?
That's a great question. And I just preface it by saying that even up until recently, we have been grossly underutilizing the space that we have. At any one point in most major office buildings, just about anywhere in urban, in Class A urban, whether it's Class A urban or even a suburban office was starting to go down. Class A office was was kind of level, but you were talking 60% occupancy. So there were indications, whether it was in retail or in office, that we might have been overbuilt. We started out 250 square feet per person working in a building. They had an office. And we started organizing cube farms back in the 60s. People went down to 100 square feet. Then we went to an open office concept. Questionable whether that really helped utilization. Kind of moved to activity-based work. I think right now we came to a huge realization. Our workforce came to a huge realization, and did the executives who both build buildings and operate buildings, that people can work remotely. They can work out of their homes. And there's a good portion of the workforce that said, we really like working out of our homes. We, in some cases, we like working out of our homes more than we do schlepping to an office every day and working there. I think we're in a transition period right now. A lot of corporate occupiers were looking to open up their offices and start flowing back in workers. First it was June 15th, now it's after Labor Day, some are at the end of the year. Some folks are looking at June 2020 to get up to that 50% level. I don't think we really know how it's going to go yet. I think there are still more questions than answers, but we have learned that not everyone has to be in an office. There are people that have to collaborate. Our construction workers have to be on the site. Engineers working on projects have to collaborate. There are times in very creative positions, those spontaneous collaborations that happen in the hall, they make the difference between success and not having success. But does the accountant have to be in the office? Do the back office workers need to be in the office? They need collaborative technology so that they can have a meeting. And, and will it look like, I think a lot of corporations are looking more at that 3-2-2, 3 days in the office, 2 days home, 2 days off. Is that realistic? It sounds like it makes sense, but still that won't work for everybody. There are a percentage of folks that absolutely want to be back in the office. There are a percentage of folks that have said, my lifestyle has shifted. I actually want to work at home. I can get just as much done. And there are arguments on both sides whether productivity improves or is impaired by remote work. I think this is all playing out in front of our eyes right now.
Yeah.
And I think we'll have a much better idea, how the science of hybrid is going to evolve. But I think it will require technologies. It will require a new understanding of how we look at work, how we measure work, and just that whole, and what we need to do to attract people back to the workplace.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because I think we saw the trend, even in 2018, 2019 of, really a focus more on work-life balance, this sort of 60-hour work week and working on weekends and not seeing your family. I think people were getting a little kind of fed up with that and looking for ways to balance out. And then, as everyone started working from home, on a daily basis and got to see their families, all for some people that was a blessing and a curse.
Or a curse.
But what was really nice about it is, you'd be on a call, really serious call with someone, and then all of a sudden someone's like cat would walk across their keyboard, and you'd see this like tail go across the screen. And I think we were reminded that, we're just people, right? We're all sort of connected.
And we're used to that now.
Yeah,
we're used to the dog in the background.
Yeah.
We're used to the kid. It personalizes everyone, which I think was a good thing.
Yeah. I know, I think so, but I think that also it's magnified this notion. You're talking about like, well, how are we going to structure the work week? And it's almost like it's not necessarily just about the productivity metric, that companies who are going to win in the space are going to look at what motivates their workforce and what does their workforce care about. And by focusing on that rather than just the productivity metric, that will in fact benefit the productivity metric, because you're going to have a happier workforce and therefore they will be more productive. But it's kind of a big science project now.
It is, because people who have been working at home, they're going to have to feel like there's a motivation for them to go back into the office. They're certainly going to need to have as good or better technology there. And the experience has to incentivize them to go in. So, so those folks that are responsible for workplace design and strategy, are looking at things like, is this a healthy working environment? Indoor air quality, is it what it should be? So folks feel safe, they feel healthy, they feel safe. Are they making the right connections? Are they? Do they have the supportive technology here to do to do collaborative work? It's one thing doing Zoom calls on your laptop, but can I create a better experience here in the office that's more immersive, connects us in ways that we really can't do as well on the small screen, and that enhances the whole collaborative effort. So I think both landlords who build the buildings and kind of maintain that space for the occupiers who have the employees, it's starting to have some kind of interesting conversations on how they can work together to just enhance the experience from the time the employee or the visitor or the occupant walks through the door, even before they walk through the door, and they go through the lobby and the gateway and the elevator going up to the office. They create just a whole envelope of enhanced experience. We're starting to see those conversations now. The question is, how will that impact how we use space? If we were only at 60% utilization in 2019, what is that going to do to utilization now? What's that going to do to portfolio rationalization and resizing in the future? We're still building buildings. Do we really need all that space? If we do, what happens to all the Class B and Class C space that doesn't get improved?
Yeah.
What do we do with that? I mean, do we turn that into affordable housing?
I can my former city, again, we're not going to go naming names, but yeah, I think my former city could definitely use that. Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting. I mean, of course, I'm going to say what we should be doing is having dedicated immersive space where we can actually, have, again, a hybrid scenario where you have you have avatars, you were able to bring in 2D and 3D assets, you're all able to work on the same designs. I mean, the AEC industry is a 3D industry, right? That's managed to teach itself how to be effective in a 2D world. And, these 3D environments require one thing that we haven't always had in offices that we have now, and that's space, right? We can have even a holodeck now, you can have a whole, room that's dedicated to this immersive collaboration. So I'm kind of hoping that we see more of that in the coming years.
Oh, me too. We're pushing it. So one of the things we're doing with these hybrid events is we're trying to teach folks, and we're playing around with the holodecks and the teleportation and all of that stuff. We're trying to teach landlords, like some of the big landlords. I mean, you need to have a production studio with green screen and a large LED wall and full motion AR, VR, in your building as an amenity for your tenants, because they're going to want to use this stuff for collaboration. We played around with the idea of, kind of creating not a studio in a box.
Well, like a capture studio, right? And it's becoming less and less expensive. In the same way you'd have to carve out some space for conference rooms, you're just going to have to create more space to be able to enable. And again, the cost and the technical requirements of these, volumetric capture studios is going to come way down and be much simpler. But, imagine being able to have these virtual meetings where you're actually looking at somebody's, and it's not just an avatar, it's their hologram.
And how does that whole thing change when instead of, just having a, 75-inch LED screen, you have a 20 by 10 or, 20 by 40 LED wall where you're bringing in folks, but they're not tiny little tiles, they're full size. This is one of the things we're playing around with for our event this week, is making people absolutely life size, bringing the LED wall down to the floor, so that if I'm standing up in front of that LED wall, I can be talking to someone remotely. They're the same size as I am, and it looks like we're having a conversation. I mean, and
I'm going to make myself
there's
taller,
a lot
though.
of nuance. Yeah. I'm sorry?
Taller. I'm going to make, I'm going to go from like 5'10" to like 6'2". I'm going to be 6'2" in those meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll take that.
Well, it is a brave new future. ahead of us, and RealComm is certainly on the forefront. So yeah, I look forward to the next event. So I'm going to wrap up with the question I ask everybody, which is, if you could project yourself 20, 25 years in the future, and you could have a service or a gadget or just something that makes your personal life better, what would it be and what would it do?
Besides, let's say, a baseball cap that would grow my hair back again.
That could be it. That could be it.
What would be nice? It would be fun. This is actually, might be a little weird, but you know how Google Translate works, and you can hold it up, and I use this a lot. You have a foreign speaker, you hold up the phone, and while they're speaking, it actually does a translation. What would be cool, I think, anyway, is have a device that it doesn't just actually translate verbatim the words that they're saying, but it tells you about really what they're thinking and what's in their heart, and you really get a peek into where somebody really is at, both spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. I think that would be kind of cool, because I think in a lot of cases our verbal communications is we either don't take the time, and I'm guilty of this, to really articulate what we mean and what we feel. And I'd love to see something that helps us connect more on a human level.
I love that. That's a great one. And I think, the whole purpose of this is to put it out there so someone will build it.
Yeah, listen, they're doing emotion sensing now. So some of the stuff that's out there is.
Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you today. And thanks so much for joining us.
This has been fun. Thank you. I appreciate it.